So this weekend is a pagan harvest day. It's in the northern hemisphere, it's Imbolc, and in the southern hemisphere it is Lunacia or Lammas. And a lot of people during or around the time of the pagan festivals often ask, how should it be celebrated? And obviously, depending on the tradition, the person, and even the land they're in, that celebration can vary quite a bit. But there's a nice little ritual that we can do called the Houzle, or the red meal, which honors the gods, the land whites, etc., etc., which you can do at any pagan festival. In fact, you can do it any time. So that's what I want to discuss today. But first, the intro. Okay, so the Houzle or the red meal. Actually, before I get into that, I just want to say that this Friday I'll be doing another live stream, but it's the end of the month, it's the last day of the month, so I'm going to be doing or having a look at some books, which then introduces the topic of next month, which next month is going to be money magic. So if you're interested in money magic, then definitely tune in for that. And on the live stream you can ask whatever questions you want, so bear that in mind. So that's at the usual time, which is 4 p.m. GMT time, so you can just convert whatever time zone you're in into that. So let's get into the Houzle. So the Houzle, or as I say, the red meal, I actually prefer to call it the red meal. The Houzle is Anglo-Saxon, I believe. It's about celebrating the gods and the goddesses, or the nature spirits. In fact, you can use it to celebrate and connect with any spirit that you want to. Now, people usually do the Houzle during the pagan festivals. I often do it at the new moon as well, just to dedicate the month to Hecate and things like that. But you can actually do it any time. It does actually tie a lot into the northern tradition blot, which is also sometimes called a feigning, and I'll explain why just now. The blot, however, does get a bit more involved. It is quite a lengthy process, and it's also usually aimed at groups. So if you do have a group of people, then you might want to have a look into the Satru blot. But otherwise, you can use the red meal anytime you want to. It is often to ask for something, to give something to the spirits in order to ask for something back. But at the same time, you don't need to ask for something. Its main purpose is actually to intermingle your energy with the energy of the spirits. So you take the spirit into your body and you transfer your own personal power to the spirits. So there's an intermingling between you and the land, for instance. And because you mostly use bread and wine, there's also a connection with the land in the case of the grapes and the wheat and things like that you actually use to make the bread and the wine. So through that you are actually connecting to the land itself. And because you are intermingling yourself with the spirits, it's also a case of, we're not separate from anything else. We're not separate from the land. We're not separate from the underworld. We are part of it. Everything is one. Is rolled up into, all the energy intermingles between the land, between the spirits, between the gods and the goddesses, between yourself and other people. So it's a very simple ritual, but at the same time it's extremely powerful, especially in its symbolism. So if you go to the Meadows of Alfheim on my website, or jump off from my website, leewjohnson.com, you'll find a link to Meadows of Alfheim there. If you go there and you go to the Cunning Man's Cottage, you'll actually find the ritual, the outline for it on there under Houzle. So you can actually perform it yourself if you want to. But as I say, for new moon, for full moon, for any pagan festival, any time really, you can actually just use the red meal to dedicate yourself to the gods and the goddesses, or as I say, the land whites. So it doesn't just need to be to the gods and goddesses. If you actually want to work with your fetch, for instance, then you can actually do a red meal to your fetch, which is quite a powerful intermingling of energy between yourself and your fetch. And therefore, going forward, the intensity of that connection actually increases. So you can do it for the land whites, you can do it for the ancestors and for the dead. For like during Samhain, for instance, you might want to actually do a red meal to the ancestors specifically, because during that time the veil's thin and you are connecting with the dead and connecting with the ancestors quite potently. So with the red meal, you are actually connecting with them on a personal, on a basically one-to-one basis. Your energy is intermingling with the dead. So as I say, very simple ritual, but extremely powerful and can be done anytime. It's called the red meal mostly because red is the color of blood, and blood is the color of life, or blood is the symbolic of life. Therefore we bring life into our practice, into connection with these spirits, the land whites, and the house ghosts, the gods and the goddesses, the Fecce, the ancestors, your connection with your own personal fetch, whatever it is. It can be done at any time, and it doesn't need to be that give in order to receive something. You'll find that in the Asatru blot there is quite an emphasis on that, but with the red meal it can be done for that, but it's not necessary. It really is just a connection that you're actually forming. And when you do the red meal, I would suggest trying to get some bread which is as dark as possible. So rye is exceptionally good for the red meal. If you can't get your hands on rye, just use some brown bread. Rye has gotten quite expensive for some reasons, well, in this country anyway. So don't do this every day, obviously. And then some red wine. If you are having a problem getting red wine, and I say that sounds a bit odd because you can just go to the bottle store and get red wine. In South Africa at the moment, we can't. We have a ban on alcohol due to COVID and the lockdown. So if you can't get red wine, red grape juice. It's the symbolism mostly. But if you can get red wine, or if you do have you do have a problem with alcohol, then use red wine. There's no reason why you have to use, red grape juice. There's no reason why you have to use alcohol. Whatever you're comfortable with. So once you have your two objects, and you can light a candle as well, you can do a whole banishing, you can do a whole compass round, hallowing, you can do some treading the mill beforehand, whatever you want to do. If you do want to get into a trance before you actually do the red meal, so you are actually strongly connecting with those entities, with the spirits, then you might want to do treading the mill, or some kind of trance work, some kind of, last week we spoke about twilight sleep. So you can do some kind of trance work in order to get yourself into that space of the nowness and that proper connection with yourself and with the spirits. you can do that. It's very makes it even more powerful. Or you can just go ahead and just do the red meal. If you are working with the gods or a god and a goddess, the blood mother, for instance, and the horn man, the horn god, as her consort, then you would seine. And when I say seine, what I mean is you just put your hand, usually your left hand over the bread or the wine, and you would then just call on the god or the goddess, depending on which, if you're seining the wine or the bread at the time. Just have a look at the Meadows of Alfheim, explains it a bit more in there. And then you just call on the god or goddess, and you ask them to fill the wine or the bread with their power. If you are just working with one, for instance, if you're working with just the goddess, a particular goddess maybe, then you can put both hands over and ask her to fill the bread and the wine with her power. Same thing if you're working with a particular god, you just ask the god to fill the objects with power. Then what you do, you'll see it in the outline of the ritual and ceremony itself on Meadows of Alfheim. But you then you take a sip, you eat some bread, and then you pour the wine onto the bread. And then you take that, and you usually put it outside, or you can put it on your hearth, where it will then feed the spirits, the nature spirits, the land wights, the land itself, the tree spirits, the plant spirits, all of that. So you usually take that outside and you leave it there, or you bury it in the ground. So I feel like I'm rushing through this. I'm just trying to outline the main points, because you can go and do a lot of research on this. You'll find that if you do search for Houzle, it'll probably come up with Houzle or red meal on a lot of different sites, and most of them are actually variations of the red meal, which was mentioned in Robin Artisan's books and on the Meadows of Alfheim. So, I'm just trying to actually just give you the basic, or the main points and the main outlines and things not to forget about, and why you're actually doing it. But before you take it outside, what you can also do is just put your finger, two fingers I usually do, into the mixed wine and bread, and then I just touch my forehead and thank the spirits for giving me the power, and then that power come into me. So it's a transference, as I say. So what you're doing is you are filling the wine and the bread with the power of the spirits you're working with. You are then taking that into your body, and then by doing the ritual itself, you are actually putting your energy into the whole process. Then you are taking that outside and feeding it to the land itself. So there's a whole intermingling that happens, a taking in of energy and a giving of energy. If you do go have a look at the Asatru blot, as I say, that's quite a lengthy process. There are all different parts to it. You start with actually hallowing, banishing, and then you go into various different things where you give offerings, and then you ask for something that you want to bring into your life, for instance. But it's a whole long ritual, and it's often done with groups. I have done it with just myself, and maybe 2 or 3 people at different stages throughout the years. And it definitely works better if you do it with a group. If you have a lot of people, you can go around the table. It just makes the celebration so much more exciting and so much more interesting. And there's a lot of drinking that goes on, so you can make a whole day of it, a whole weekend of it if you want to. It's actually a fantastic thing to do if you have enough people. But blot actually means blood. Originally what they would do is actually slaughter a pig, usually a pig. So they would slaughter the animal and then drain the blood and the blood would then be sort of flicked onto everybody present, and this was done as a blessing. So blessing has also come to be understood or translated as what was it? I think it was blessing or offering of blood, something like that. But it has relationship. Blessing actually has a relationship to blood and to blot. Now, because we don't sacrifice the animal nowadays, a lot of people have asked if it should still be called blot. And a lot of people say yes, because it's the ceremony, it's representation and everything else. Some people say no, it shouldn't be. So those people who say no refer to it as a feigning, F-A-I-N-I-N-G. So if you do want to research that a bit as well, then you've got all the info you need. So as I say, if it's just you or maybe just 2 or 3 people, you know, your family for instance, and you want to do something which celebrates the gods and the goddesses and celebrates the land or celebrates the land whites, the ancestors and the dead, or, you know, whatever it is. And obviously depending on where you are, which season you're in and which harvest festival you're actually celebrating, you can do that celebration, that offering to the particular spirit that signifies that time. But if it's just you or a small group, then the red meal is fantastic to do. If you've got a large group, I would definitely say go for the blot. It really is a fantastic celebration. There's often, if you actually have a good look into it, there's often some bragging that goes on as well. In the northern traditions, there was a format within the blot where you actually started, where people would do bragging. So they would say, I accomplished this year, and the year following I am going to do this. And through that bragging, it's actually forms or falls under oaths and bonds as well. But that bragging itself is a way to actually tie your intent into the well of weird. Once it's tied into the well of weird, there's no backing down. So if you said you're going to do this the next year, you have to do it. There's no backing out. It's a promise you've made. It's an oath that you've made with the well, with weird itself. So you know, it's actually quite a powerful and potent ceremony in itself. But anyway, I'm going to start rambling on and getting away from myself. So that's the red meal and the Houzle. Great to do anytime, but especially you can do it this weekend with Imolc or Lunisha, otherwise known as Lamas. And that's it. So I hope to see everybody on Friday in the live stream, 4 p.m. GMT time. Ask any questions you want to. I'll just go over some books that I'm going to be covering. There are a couple books that I think are an absolute waste of time, so I will actually mention those and, tell you to either read them, find out for yourself, or just forget about them. But anyway, so I'll see you on Friday. Have a great week. Cheers.